All right. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are in the world. Welcome to the Mobile Creator Podcast. It's a roundtable discussion, and it's live, so anything could happen. How you doing, Glenn?
And it and it probably will, let's be
And it,
fair. But yeah, I'm good, Courtney. I'm good. It's evening time here in Ireland, just after 8 o'clock, and we have guests from all over the world. So I think we're in for an exciting hour or thereabouts.
Indeed, indeed. So let's just get right into it. I mean, this is a special event for us because we've never done a live. You guys are used to us doing this as a pre-taped, pre-canned thing that we upload to YouTube and to our podcasting, outlets. But this is truly, truly live, and we've got a great lineup for you. Today, we are talking about the iPhone 12 Pro and Pro Max, and what that means for filmmakers and content creators. And again, we have a great lineup here. So let's just start bringing them in. What do you think, Glenn?
Go for it.
Awesome. Oh, by the way, let's real quick, for anybody wanting to join in on the discussion, we are you're going to see Glenn and I looking down and all over the place because we've got live feeds and chat feeds and all kinds of stuff. So don't take us as being rude, but we're actually just trying to respond to you guys, and I'm actually doing the live switching of this thing. So it's going to be kind of all over the place, but it's going to be fun. We're going to have a good time. But if you're wanting to chat to us on Twitter, you can hit us at the hashtag MCPODCAST live. So MC Podcast Live, and or you can hit us on the YouTube feed, the live chat feed, and that would be awesome. And so this is being simulcast on two areas, on the Mobile Creator Podcast YouTube channel, and on the Made on Mobile TV podcast channel, YouTube channel. So you can hit us at both places, but I'm sure you'll be able to find us at one of those. All right. Again, let's go. Our first victim that we have is Christopher Cohen, who is the CTO of FiLMiC Pro, which rhymes. How you doing, Christopher?
I'm great. How are you?
Fantastic. Thanks for joining us. This is very exciting for us to have you on. We've been wanting to have you on the you and Neil and anybody from FiLMiC Pro, because you guys have been beautiful, lovely sponsors of our podcast, and we love you guys. But today is pretty special because of the implications and what it means to us filmmakers and for the great FiLMiC Pro app. So welcome, and we'll bring in our next victim. Chris Demiris is the co-founder of LumaTouch, which is an editing software that pound for pound the best editing software out there that you can use on your iPad or iPhone. And Chris, welcome.
Thanks, Courtney, and hi, Glenn. It's great to see you both, and good to be on. It's fun to join part of this.
Welcome, Chris. Great to see you too. So should we say Chris and Christopher, just so we don't keep talking over each other? Is that the kind of best? Yeah, just okay. Just checking.
Sounds good.
All right.
Excellent. Our next guest, victim number 3, Nimmin. For those who know, or those who don't know, Nimmin is a YouTube guru, but he actually shows you how to do everything on mobile. And it's Dee's aside from being just a wonderful guy, he's incredibly knowledgeable about how to get the best out of your mobile device, and how to use it to get the best out of your YouTube content. So welcome, Dee.
That was quite the introduction. Thank you, Courtney. Hello, Glenn. Hello, Christopher.
Hey,
hello,
Dee.
Chris. Honored to be part of this. Thank you.
Awesome.
Good to see you.
Awesome. And now coming to the stage, Blake Calhoun, amazing filmmaker and educator in terms of filmmaking, and he's done such a great job at educating people, including myself. He's one of the few people that I ring the notification bell for on YouTube because he actually knows his stuff when it comes to using FiLMiC and LumaFusion and mobile devices. So Blake, welcome.
How's it going? Thank you for having me.
Yeah,
Good to see you,
excellent.
Blake.
All right. This next guy, man, we're really happy to have this guy on. Richard Lackey. Richard is on top of a filmmaker. He is a color theorist. This guy knows how to bleed every bit of goodness out of an iPhone or any mobile phone when it comes to filmmaking. So, Richard, welcome.
Hey guys, glad to be here. Thanks for that intro.
It's well deserved. So, and then finally, last but not least, this guy right here, Ryan Camp, an amazing filmmaker living on the west coast of the United States. He is I'm learning a lot from him. He's got a YouTube channel that helps you get the best out of filmmaking in general, but this dude is awesome, and we really appreciate him coming on. So welcome, Ryan.
Thank you guys so much. I'm really excited to be here.
Awesome. So again, today is a big day because we are we a little over a week ago a little announcement for a little device called the iPhone came out, and they had significant improvements in a lot of and in particular the iPhone Pro Max. So that's one that I'm incredibly interested in. But before we get into all of that, I want to kind of go down the list and kind of get everybody's opinion about what they saw in terms of this and honest opinions. What they saw about these devices. So, Glenn, let's start with you. What was your impression of the new iPhone?
I suppose the few things that kind of struck me as number one, I had a few expectations probably completely appropriately kind of placed, like the transition to USB-C was something that I was kind of pretty much resigned to. On top of that, I was kind of hoping that they might add a little bit more zoom. I know that when we did the summit going back in April and May, most of the filmmakers I spoke to kind of didn't care that there was no zoom in there. But coming from a journalism kind of perspective on things, it's a question that pops up a lot if there's any opportunity for a little bit of additional zoom. And obviously Android, to a certain extent, the Huawei's and the Samsungs of the world have all gone down that particular path. The other thing I was kind of hoping for an announcement on was the possibility of Lidar maybe being leveraged to give you a little bit more kind of portrait mode effect or better shallow depth of field in video, but there was no real mention of that. But I suppose the key thing is when you look at the kind of buzzwords that hopefully we're going to get through all of them today, like the impact of 5G, 10-bit, Pro RAW, all that stuff. There was loads of buzzwords where I kind of stood there and then started going to Google going, what does that mean? And I guess part of the motivation for tonight, I'm not kidding, part of the motivation for tonight is I'm tapping into brains that are like penultimately much bigger than mine to try and understand some of this stuff. So I'm definitely coming to tonight's conversation representing Joe Blogs, trying to get an understanding of what the hell that all really means. What's the jargon actually translate to for the person who's trying to decide should they be upgrading to an iPhone 12 or an iPhone 12 Pro. That's my take.
There you go. All right. Christopher, you're up to bat.
Yeah, my initial impressions were I was pleased. Clearly, they're laying rail to move in the right direction. Apple is aware of the needs of high-end users. I mean, that's why we have an iPhone Pro. They're trying to appeal to that segment. I would say the first version of iPhone Pro was really just a form factor difference and maybe additional camera modules, but now there's actual differentiation in the capabilities. We see that with sensor shift stabilization, which, my God, getting that, sensor shift stabilization into a package that small is an enormous technical feat. We see larger sensors, which is what people have been asking for. People do not, high-end consumers do not want ultra high resolution sensors that get binned down. They don't want that. Apple has heard that from high-end users. They want larger photo sites, larger sensors, and they delivered that. Again, they're increasing the amount of encodable options. We're getting early peaks at what will become, in time, I assume, a mature 10-bit pipeline. So I know that a lot of folks looked at the announcement with disappointment, but what I see is Apple iterating in a very good direction for us.
Excellent. Thank you. Chris, what's your take?
Yeah, so for us, or for me in particular, I always look at it from how much work we have to do on LumaFusion to support whatever new features that Apple comes out with, and we're already behind on that. So, but luckily this time around, one of the features that's really exciting for us is the Dolby Vision for HDR. Our next version of LumaFusion coming out in a couple of weeks will support HDR, a full 10-bit pipeline through it. It won't support Dolby Vision all the way through, but we have everything in place to allow that and to allow for a lot more of the metadata that describes both the scenes and the mastering display, so that you'll get the best color output on your output display. So we're really excited by where Apple's heading with that, and now we just have to do all the work to keep up with that.
Yeah, I'm sure there's going to be a whole lot of work. So good deal. Mr. Nimmin, weigh in.
Yeah, I don't have one yet. In terms of the 12 Pro versus the 12 Pro Max, I'm definitely holding out for the Max. What I've seen online, and of course I haven't actually seen the footage on a computer, but what I've seen online, I haven't seen a huge difference, at least not a $1,000 or $1,200 difference between the photos and the videos that I'm seeing people post, comparing to the iPhone 11 Pro. So I'm going to hold out for the 12 Max. It's exciting. I mean, it's definitely moving in the right direction. I'm looking forward to more stability. So if I'm outside and I'm vlogging, I definitely want that to be as smooth as possible, so I don't have to carry a gimbal around. So, I'm looking for stability, maybe a little faster rendering time with the A14. So we'll see.
Yeah, those are definitely good takes, and I too am waiting for Max because I'm looking forward to that low light. A better low
light video. Yes, low light video. Yeah.
Yes, indeed. Yes, Mr. Calhoun, what do you have to say here?
I'll pretty much echo what everyone says, except for me, I'm looking at it as a filmmaking tool and color grading. And so I'm really interested in seeing how 10-bit holds up in post-production. I'm also interested to see if we get lower video noise and low light. And along those same lines, the stabilization that Christopher mentioned, almost like IBIS built into the phone, to me, that is really pretty interesting. And so I'm just the whole package, and I'm talking more about the Pro Max, I think looks really interesting for filmmakers. And again, we don't have it yet, but I do think it shows a lot of promise on paper anyway. But that is one thing, though. A lot of things show promise on paper, but then in practicality and reality, it can be different.
Indeed. Yes. So jury's still out, obviously, and that's one of the reasons why we're doing this today. Is we're trying to talk about this at a higher level, at a filmmaking level, not just a grab it and go shoot, your son or daughter's soccer match sort of level. This
right.
is we're talking about. So
because that's who Apple makes the phones for, us, the 0.1% who wants to use it in a film.
Right. Yes. All right. So, Mr. Lackey, what's your take?
Yeah, so I mean, I guess anybody who's been following me, at least since the last iPhone release, and even before that, has known that every time this time of year, I'm hoping for 10-bit, and this was the year that it was finally, something that came up. But at the same time, I think what was just mentioned in terms of kind of what's on paper versus the reality of how it's implemented is going to be an interesting one to see, because if it's really just HDR delivery formats that are what's offered in terms of that 10-bit pipeline, in terms of real post-production workflow and color grading, there's really not an awful lot you can do with Dolby Vision. Like it's a finished format. It's nice to see on an HDR screen, but it's not something you can work with from a color grading perspective. So I think that's going to be what I'm most interested in seeing, how that works out.
Yeah, excellent. All right. Hey, last but not least, again, Ryan, hot take, what's going on?
I'm actually really excited to get my hands on the 12 Pro Max because I'm still using the 8 Pro at this point. I've waited a really long time for a reason to upgrade to get excited, and I think the 12 Pro Max has finally got me a little bit, my interest peaked. I'm most interested in seeing how the low light performance is and the skin tones. That's the thing I've had drawbacks in the past using the 8 Pro to shoot films. That's the biggest things that I want to see improved with the camera.
Right. Good deal. Yeah. So, so kind of at a more technical level, let's talk to, two of the people that this kind of affects the most. Let's talk to FiLMiC and to LumaFusion and see, what is, kind of, if you can talk about it, what are the implications for your two companies, and give us a little abbreviated version of your roadmap if you're able to. So let's see, let's get let's go. Christopher, you want to go first?
Sure. Okay. In terms of, like, we make apps, we don't make any tools that edit or modify the image post, right? That's Chris Demiris' job. But what we do is we build capture pipelines, and we try to encode at the highest quality possible, and that's accomplished through a variety of mechanisms. That's through encoder settings and bitrate, which makes sense to most users, I think. Bigger files, higher quality. But there's other things involved too. There's a signal to noise ratio, which we're getting an improvement on. But there's also the tone mapping. We've been fighting dynamic tone mapping in the past, and I don't know if you're aware of what dynamic tone mapping is, but essentially it's a mechanism or stage in the capture pipeline on many mobile devices where the raw image comes in, and before it's mapped down to an 8-bit container, they fiddle with it. They optimize it for stills. Really, it's a still capture pipeline, but we've been using it in video, which isn't ideal. So Apple has shown interest through various iterations of improving that for videographers. The one thing that is encouraging is the availability of a 10-bit capture potentially. Rich talked about how Dolby Vision is hard to use, but if the device is actually emitting a Dolby Vision sample buffer, the metadata is going to be separate. So we don't necessarily have to use it. So there is a possibility, and again, I don't know, I don't have the device, but there is a possibility that when this becomes available to third-party developers, we will be able to encode a unadulterated and unremapped file at a very high quality without the Dolby Vision dynamic metagamma.
Right.
Did I say things in English?
Yeah.
I was just going to ask for a translator.
I got it, sort of.
So basically, tone mapping bad, 10-bit good, right? That's the.
It depends on the 10-bit implementation. As Richard Lackey said, if it's a kind of hands-off capture pipeline that they give us, then unfortunately there's not a lot on offer for professionals. However, if, as I suspect, we get kind of a more raw 10-bit delivered to us, then that could be game-changing.
Yeah. Mr. Demiris, what 10-bit is a big deal because we can shoot all this stuff, but how are we going to edit it? And that's really kind of another big question, because people like me, my pipeline is shoot it on my phone and then edit it on my iPad or my phone, but so how are you guys going to carry all of that crazy pipeline through?
Yeah, luckily we've been working on this for a little while now, because iOS 14 introduced 10-bit export, which Apple didn't have before that. So we've been able to work on it independent of the new phones coming out, and we're just about to release that. And what we've found is that 10-bit sources, even we originally were just adding 10-bit support for only the HDR color spaces, but we started getting requests from our beta users that they also wanted 10-bit Rec 709, SDR support. And we found with that, it makes a massive difference in the quality of the output. People who were getting, radiations in the sky that you could see before now get smooth, gradients between them. So it is making a difference. In our app now, if you pick one of the 10-bit project formats, it will take it 10-bit, a direct conversion from 10-bit to half float within the within our engine all the way through. So it keeps it at a really high quality through, and then directly out to 10-bit, on the outgoing side. So it's as little loss of quality as possible. It's as professional of an engine as you can, as you can really get. And from a tool standpoint, we still have a ways to go to provide a lot more, color grading tools in the app, and those will be coming. But with what we've got there now with a 10-bit pipeline, that really sets the stage to allow it and to keep the quality of the video. And that's what honestly we're more excited about. And then having the new phones that can record 10-bit hopefully will make a workflow that takes it end on the phone and on iOS. And like Christopher said, we have to see how that it's going to fit into the capture pipeline, but hopefully it'll be something that can really make a difference all the way through.
Good deal. Good deal. Hey, Richard, in terms of color theory, what are your kind of takes on some of this stuff when it comes to the Dolby Vision of it all and the 10-bit of it all, shooting on an iPhone?
Well, I mean, I guess different people's goals will be different with it. So like what I have in mind with it isn't really, I don't really care that much about HDR at all in terms of, that's not necessarily where I want to end up. One thing that Chris just mentioned was, a better SDR, a better standard dynamic range result. And that's more like what I would want to achieve. So it's a case of having Christopher from FiLMiC mentioned, having more of an unadulterated 10-bit source, not necessarily Dolby Vision in terms of all the dynamic metadata and things that are involved with that, but just, a higher dynamic range, a fixed transform function kind of 10-bit source. And then creatively and technically in post, being able to get a really nice looking standard dynamic range output, Rec 709 output. That's kind of what I want to, that's my goal. That's what I want to be able to do with it. And again, as was just mentioned, being able to have skies and subtle gradations and variations that don't have that stepping, that banding that you see. Like that's a big deal. So yeah, I think for me, I'd like to be able to technically and creatively get really nice looking SDR out of it. That's kind of my goal, more than caring too much about an HDR output.
Yeah. Blake, what do you what's your thoughts, kind of on the 10-bit of it all?
I'm curious, number one, and maybe this is a question for Christopher. Is this 10-bit 422?
It's 420.
It's 420. Okay, that's what I was wondering. I thought that would be pretty heavy for a phone. But yeah, exactly. I just wasn't 100% sure though. For me, again, it's about color grading for the 10-bit side of it. I'm just really interested, as Richard was saying, to be able to actually get more. Well, and this is another question I'm here for Chris Cohen, by the way. That's why I'm here. I want to know if they can make log V3 or log V whatever in using this 10-bit. But again, more from being able to do more pro level color correction, and 10-bit is, what everyone wants. I'm shooting right now with a mirrorless camera, and that's what people want, like the new Sony A7S III, the 10-bit and all that kind of thing. I know it's two different animals. I know that those aren't the same, but will that be a possibility?
Log V3.
Well,
optimized for 10-bit.
Well, the cinematographer kit, the log.
Well, we're certainly not sitting on our hands.
I had heard, maybe you can correct me. I had heard that at this point, the Apple hasn't opened that up. Is that true? The API to third-party developers?
That's right. But as with many things with new hardware releases, Apple is known to release API framework support days later, months later, or sometimes years later. I believe it will be a shorter timetable than a longer one.
Excellent.
Yeah.
Excellent. Very diplomatic answer.
It's funny seeing like Christopher sweat, like he's put on the hot seat. That's the question everybody has in their mind.
Yeah. Well, when I had him on my podcast, those are the first questions I asked, and he was being very diplomatic, and I think he thought he got in trouble a couple times with some of his answers.
D, what do you think?
You know, I'm going to go against the grain here because what I actually use my phone for, because I'm not a filmmaker. If I shoot something with my phone, it's going on YouTube. So because of that, I'm not too excited about 10-bit, because once it gets encoded and it gets up to YouTube and YouTube encodes it and people are watching it at you know, different resolutions, especially on their phone, it doesn't excite me too much. So I know I'm going to be the odd one out here for that. But for filmmakers, I think it's going to be great, especially, you know, getting into color correction and that sort of thing.
Interesting.
Silence after that one.
Well, Courtney, you're muted, my friend.
Sorry, it doesn't unlock anything special for you. Maybe
Right.
You know, maybe the OIS, maybe that would kind of be interesting. You know, so you can put down whatever gimbals, you know, people have wide-angle lens. Ryan, what you feeling?
Yeah, like I said, I'm coming from the 8 Pro, so just about anything is going to be an improvement for me. When I do shoot on my phone, I do use FiLMiC Pro, so it's up to those guys to unlock the magic for me. So I'm just leaving it in their hands. So, but yeah, I'm just really excited, like I said, to see better low light performance, better skin tones, and that's the thing I'm looking for. And I can't wait to get my hands on it and shoot a new film with it.
Indeed. All right. So let's move on to, you know, what the phone is and isn't. You know, because I think we all, you know what, or we all think we know what it is. But let's see what it is. We know that it has 5G. You know, so that's kind of interesting, and that's interesting for me because, you know, being able to shoot in the field and upload immediately, you know, to Frame.io, to Dropbox, you know, to what have you, to back up your data, you know, like immediately. I was hoping for, you know, something in the vein of USB-C, but that didn't happen, as we all know. But 5G actually, you know, has an interesting implication. So does anybody have a take on that?
We've actually had a couple of questions from the audience in relation to 5G, so I'll pop those in a second, but go for it.
Yeah. Anybody?
I mean, I think people will be disappointed. If you look at a 5G coverage map, it's full of holes.
Yes.
5G towers, yeah, the transceivers have very short ranges. So if you think there's going to be a clean transition from 4G to 5G, think again. They're going to coexist.
We're several years away, is what I think.
Right. And that we're not just talking about millimeter wave, which is for those who don't know, and I'm just going to, you know, kind of paraphrase it. You know, it's really there are a couple of different flavors of 5G. So 5G is essentially going to speed up your data, right? But to the speed of what you would normally probably get, you know, in terms of your internet at home. But 5G, there are a couple of different flavors of it, and one of them is millimeter wave, and that one's going to be the really super fast one, but you almost have to be sitting on top of the tower to actually get your 5G, because it doesn't go through buildings yet. It doesn't, you know, if you walk behind a tree, you know, it will get disrupted. Then there's sub 6, what it's called. Is that correct? So sub 6, which is which is better. It's more like what you have right now with your 4G. Yes, with 4G or LTE. It can go through walls. It can be almost where you want to be, but it's slower than the 5G millimeter wave. Still faster than your, in theory, still faster than your 4G. Um, so there's that, just kind of encapsulated. Yeah, but who's going to be who's excited about 5G at all? Probably not.
One
I live
thing
in a
I am,
rural area, so
one thing I'm concerned about. Mac Rumors has an article on their website saying that 5G on the iPhone 12 drains the battery 20% faster than 4G. So I think that's a bit of a concern.
Yeah, transceivers are very power hungry.
Yes.
Well,
And
the other thing that I saw during the week, I don't know if you guys are familiar with Rob Layton, but Rob seemed to get his hands on a 5G. I don't know if it's the 12 or it's one of the Android devices, but he did a speed test the other day. And just the speed test alone used something like 600 megs of data. Just that one speed test. So I guess for most people in the transition phase, which is probably going to take, like, let's be honest, it's probably going to take another 4 or 5 years before the rollout is anywhere near complete. Will people just go to 5G for very short spurts of time when they really need high-speed access? And it's loaded in favor of download as opposed to upload. But for all of us, the upload side is the bit that we're interested in. So, I mean, I don't know. I kind of mixed feelings about 5G. It's a little bit of a genie in a bottle. A little bit.
Yeah. I mean, just a really quick thing, so Chris and Chris, what does that mean in terms of like file sizes? I mean, so we've got 10-bit. What is that going to mean for file sizes?
Yeah, I mean, the nice thing between 10-bit is, we're also focusing more towards H.265 encoding, which we can get good quality at a little lower bit rate. So the size isn't going to be dramatically, changed. It'll increase. But as far as 5G making a difference in that, I honestly, I mean, we're so early in 5G that I think this is more of a marketing term than really a new feature. But over the next few years, I think it'll continue to develop and evolve and become something that people will count on for better speed. But I think most people right now, when they really need to transfer something, they're going to find, a Wi-Fi point where they can do that, or, just wherever they are, try to do it with the data that they have. But I don't think they're going to be searching for a 5G spot that'll give them a little more speed.
Yeah, that's exactly right. What a lot of people don't realize is that HEVC is actually a transitional format that can support both 8-bit encoding and 10-bit encoding and other bit depths as well. So that's the real reason why Apple started adopting it several years ago, to be a bridge between lower bit depth capture and higher bit depth capture and encoding.
Awesome. All right. So 5G, so that was one thing. The next thing, I mean, if you're looking at this, grid of stuff, I mean, we've got, it's supposed to be 80% faster, better signal processing, their neural engine, all these things are, technical, whatever it is, but, what does that really mean for the end user? I mean, it's just going to make everything a little bit snappier. Is it going to allow for the video to be transcoded like on the fly? Is that, what does that kind of mean for FiLMiC? Any of this stuff on this board?
Sure. There's a few things to take note of. That the speed of the CPU cluster did not significantly increase. Instead, Apple chose to invest in further developing their encoder and increasing the size of the ML block on the die. And it's something in the neighborhood of 25% now of the area. Now, let me explain why that could be a big deal and why it probably isn't. ML compute and image transforms are very powerful ways to alter images, repair images. You can take noisy footage and make it clean. You can make low resolution image and make it super sampled to 8K if you want to, and have minimal degradation in acutance. But the problem with ML compute and tensor acceleration is that it's not real time. And that's always been the criticism. Like Apple comes out with an ML block update every single year on their SoC die. And we say, as engineers, we say, well, that's really great, but we still can't do real-time compute with that. Apple is moving in the direction, and I don't know if they've crossed that line yet, but they are moving in the direction of real-time ML compute. And when that day comes, imaging as we know it is going to fundamentally transform.
Interesting.
Well, there's the quote for the Twitter card for the rest of the conversation. But anyway, okay.
Mr. Demiris, what's your take on that?
Yeah. So from our standpoint, we always love to see the next CPU come out. When it comes out, it does make things snappier, and it'll allow a little more capability, a little faster preview. Generally we count on a lot of Apple technologies to do the heavy lifting for us under the hood. They're decoding. We use Core Image, which is another one of their libraries for all of our effects. One of the things, what Chris was mentioning, in ML is moving forward. We do hope to add more capabilities in LumaFusion that take advantage of ML. From searching for footage, from finding footage with a particular mountain in it, for example. That's an area where we don't need the real time, where I think it's going to make a big difference for us. Another area where Apple put some significant work into this year is optical flow analysis, and that'll be really good for a lot of different capabilities, for stabilization, for pulling out backgrounds, for doing all sorts of interesting imaging effects, and that'll be made faster by any of the optimizations that Apple does, and they obviously work very what's always been their advantage is their careful work between the hardware and the software that runs it, and that's what always has made their platform better for audio video than other platforms, is that attention to detail.
Right. Anybody else have any takes on this?
Nope.
The only thing I would say quickly is from the iPhone 11 Pro Max, one thing I noticed big time was it allowed just all that you showed on the screen from more of a layman's perspective. It allowed the phone to record a lot longer and not overheat. Did you see the video that Apple put out where they went around the Russian, was it a museum? I can't remember. And they shot for 5, 8, 10, 20 hours. I can't remember, but all that for just a practical everyday use of the phone. I think that has really improved, especially from the 10s Max up to the 11 Pro, and then continuing now with the 12 Pro.
Definitely.
Gotcha.
We've in case people are wondering why I constantly am looking off camera, it's because I'm actually, while I'm engaged with you guys, of course, I'm also trying to manage the chatter on YouTube. And while we're not being trolled, which is wonderful, we are getting some really, really good questions. So if you don't mind, I'd like to jump in with a few of the ones that have really, really caught my interest since we started chatting. Way back at the top of the day, pretty early on, Derek Ramey came in with a question for later on. How will 5G affect editors that will be working with footage stored in the cloud? So I don't know what the roadmap is, Chris, or if you're even allowed to talk about it, if it's even on the roadmap, but just marking the cards if anyone wants to jump in on that. I'm going to pin 3. I'm going to pin 3 questions, and then you can decide which ones you want to dive in on. So that's one, and I think that's really, really good. Our good buddy Mark Settle from BBC has been firing questions at me faster than I can respond. So one of his questions was in relation to the upgrade cycle, basically. Do you agree with the statement that for the vast majority of owners of the 11 Pro, who are more than likely not pushing their devices to anything like their limits, do you think that there's enough of an upgrade path for the 12 and the 12 Pro, not the 12 Pro Max now, but the 12 or the 12 Pro to merit the upgrade? So I'll let that one float out there as well. And then he had a question in relation to MagSafe and what the impact might be for the Lightning connection going further down the line. I'll circle back to that one later. But there's more. There's plenty coming in, I have to say. But will we circle back to Derek's one first of all? Would anyone, while I fully accept in the conversation, we've established that 5G is still in its infancy. It is definitely right now a marketing term rather than a practical application that most people are going to be able to access for at least the foreseeable future. But I mean, it'll come in time. So it's nice to see Apple actually get in, a year or two after Android rather than 5 years later. But does anyone want to jump in on the cloud impacts of potential faster connectivity?
Well, LumaFusion has always been about editing on the device, and we've made it really easy to get footage in and out, and made great integrations with people like Frame.io to make it easy to collaborate. But we've always felt that, you're going to get your best performance by having your media right there and being able to take advantage of the capabilities. That being said, I do think, even we're moving towards that ability to be able to work directly with footage, that's in the cloud and not have to have it on your device. I think we're a ways from that being practical for the kind of things that we're doing. But we're not standing still on that either. And 5G certainly in the long run should help that. I would certainly think so.
Super good, very good. Because I mean, I'm probably the only person. Well, Rich kind of, but trying to champion the old journalists out there against the front line who are doing short form content, but speed is everything to them. Whereas most of the filmmakers can afford to, spend a little bit of extra time making sure that it looks as good as it possibly can. Whereas news is a little bit more speed is priority over beauty, let's say. But anyway, okay, that's really, really useful. Good to know that it's, somewhere in the pipeline anyway. No time commitments requested or anything like that. Any comments on the upgrade path? And actually, the second one of Mark Settle's questions I think is really quite interesting, which is this idea that if they ditch Lightning, what if they ditch Lightning and USB-C and just go to mag connection only and wireless connectivity? I have hundreds of euros of Sennheiser microphones that will just start, gathering dust on the shelf instantly. But I don't know, what are your thoughts? Like, I mean, I did expect USB-C would come, faster throughput, blah, blah, blah. I don't know what the other benefits are, but what are your thoughts?
Well, if they got rid of both of them, that definitely flies in the face of Apple saying they're trying to save the planet, because now we're going to all have to run out and get the MagSafe. But like you said, we have all these devices that do plug in, so it would be unfortunate to have to find new ways to connect those. I'm not sure how that would work with the MagSafe. But in terms of Mark's question of the upgrade path, from the 11 Pro to the 12 Pro, I don't know if it's worth it, to be honest with you. To the Pro Max, probably, but just the Pro by itself, from what I've seen, I'm not sure I would upgrade.
Interesting take. I've heard that from a few people. I'm interested to hear from some of the other gents. Any other thoughts on it? Rich, Lackey, any take on it?
Yeah, I mean, I think the Pro Max, I guess we haven't really touched on it yet, but from a camera perspective, it's definitely, the wide camera, for instance, was a real highlight to me when I was first kind of watching the Apple event. The slightly larger sensor, the larger photo sites, I think there's probably going to be some significant image improvements possible just because of the new sensor and optics they've got on the wide camera, and that's something that's only on the Pro Max. So yeah, I'm expecting more of a difference for creators and filmmakers on the Pro Max than the Pro. I'm not sure. Maybe some of the other guys have some ideas about that too. Anyone else
want to jump in on it, guys?
If I were coming from the 11 Pro, I don't think I would be excited to upgrade to the 12 Pro at all. My wife has an 11 Pro, and I just don't think there's that big of a jump. But coming from the 8, I'm definitely excited to go to the Max. So.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I have the 11 Pro Max sitting on the desk beside me, but I'll ask Santa very nicely, pleadingly, that she will get it for me for Christmas. But anyway, yeah, fingers crossed. There's another question there as well, which is directed specifically at Christopher Cohen, which is from Settle as well. Thank you, Mark. He's just, content of knowledge. Does the A14 chip in the 12 increase the chances of 50 frames per second in double take?
Yes.
Thank you. Moving on swiftly. Thank you, Christopher. Succinct answer. That's all we need. Moving on. Courtney, you had another couple of slides.
Done. Oh man. So here's the 12. The 12 Pro. Excuse me. And we can see possibly some improvements here in the aperture. 27% improved low light. I mean, obviously remains to be seen. Optical image stabilization. That's a biggie. That's a big one, because right now, wanting to put your camera on your phone on a gimbal to get smooth footage, that's the big deal, right? For filmmakers. So this actually, but here's the thing, it's only on the wide lens, so that's kind of like that's the only downside. I mean, when you really need it is on the telephoto. So it would have been great to have it on both, but any takes on this?
Well, I would say that the the OIS, I mean, it has OIS now, including on the tele, and it's really for photography. And so, it gives you the wobbly, whatever video that's unusable now. That's why the ultra wide on the iPhone 11 Pro has been so important. It's allowed us to move the camera, especially on a slider dolly or a dolly, because otherwise those little micro vibrations, it just looks like garbage. You can't fix that in post-production. And so now the 12 Pro Max will have the sensor shift, IBIS more or less, and that will be on the wide lens only. And I hope to put it on the back of a truck and follow horses like Apple did, or put it on a helicopter or a little drone, whatever. That never, of course, will happen. But I do look forward to testing that out. I think that could really be a game changer for sure.
Indeed.
Yeah, I don't know if you guys are aware, but to combat this kind of micro vibration in this OIS assembly in previous models, we've actually had filmmakers, and I do not recommend that anyone do this. It can damage your device. But we've had people actually put powerful magnets on the other side of the device, which actually stabilizes the sensor assembly and the OIS solenoids. It will keep those micro vibrations from happening, but it could also, permanently destroy your device.
Kill the OIS permanently.
Yeah.
Void your warranty.
Well, I know what I'm trying when I get off of this stream.
Yeah.
Oh boy. All right, let's move on. Telephoto, some improvements there. That's good. I mean, it's a 52 millimeter focal length, which is nice. 4 times optical zoom. Interesting, not interesting? Helpful, not helpful?
On the Pro Max, it is.
Indeed. Yeah.
It's a 62 millimeter on the Pro Max, I believe, right? Yeah, because that's the Pro. The Pro Max, I guess, is 62. It's like 10. It's a little bit longer lens, and it's also it's a slower aperture though. It's a 2.2 versus a 2.
Let's be honest, though, it's generous to call that a telephoto model.
It is. There's no question about it.
Right. Yeah. So here we are with the Pro Max. 65 millimeter tele.
65. Okay. Yeah.
Yeah, 5 times optical zoom on that one. So
they're counting that from the ultra wide, though. It's kind of cheating.
Yeah,
right.
Agreed.
Right, and it's kind of interesting that that Apple drew such a big line in the sand, because now you have a 12 Pro and a 12 Pro Max. Why not just make a Pro line? Just do it across the Pro line. Just make one a little bit smaller, one a little bit larger. I mean, is there any real reason? I mean,
Yes.
other than getting your money?
No, well, yeah. So it may be just. I suppose externally the optics aren't great because it looks like they're actually holding some features hostage. But this is a case of them actually needing a larger chassis to get some of these features to work. That's as simple as that.
Gotcha. Okay. All right. Fair enough. And more real estate is good.
That's always been the argument. People always say they want a larger sensor in their phone, and just like Chris said, there's only so much space in there.
Yeah. So I mean, but God, I mean, so is that going to increase battery size? I mean, what? I mean, these are all things that we really don't know. But the battery size, the efficiency of the battery is going to be a big deal. You got all these things running, and then also one of the things, because there's some phones out there that have this IBIS in it, and when you shake the phone, you can hear it rattling around in the phone. I'm wondering, is it going to do that on the Max? Have you guys heard about that? You haven't heard it? Yeah, I can't think of which phone it is right now, but there is one that has like a censorship style thing in there, but it sounds like you're getting ready to shoot craps if you shake it. It's like so so we'll see. Hopefully they got it right. But 87% more light. What does that really mean? 87% more light. I mean, that sounds like you could see in the dark, like if you're reading it here on paper, but I'm guessing that's not really what it is.
No, it's just marketing. The aperture is larger. and since those light circles grow in intensity exponentially with aperture size changes. Yeah, there is 86% more light, but it's not earth-shattering. It's just
And the
fraction
sensor
less.
is bigger, right? So
Yeah, the sensor is bigger, but it doesn't like deposit more light on the sensor itself. The
Okay.
size of the sensor does not determine how much light gets to the sensor.
it's just the aperture then.
Exactly.
Okay.
Okay, interesting.
Yeah, and 87% is less than a stop optically. I mean, 100% would be a doubling would be a doubling of light would be an extra stop. So 87% is not that much, but marketing.
It is good marketing.
Marketing, it sounds like a lot. But
let's
fantastic
Let's be
marketing.
fair here. To go to 1.6 at that small of a lens without significant distortion is an amazing technical feat. So I'll congratulate them for that.
It was a 1.8 before, I believe, right? Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Okay.
All right. Good.
While we're talking about these lenses, coming from the 8, I use a lot of accessory lenses with my phone when I'm shooting. The way these lenses on the iPhone are evolving, do you think that accessory lenses are still needed?
Good question.
Yep. Great question.
I do. I think so.
Okay.
And I'll tell you why. I just had a conversation with Mike Castellucci, if you guys know him, and he does a lot of Mojo type stuff. He thinks the ultra wide is too wide, and he thinks the traditional wide is too telephoto. And so he uses an 18 millimeter, he puts it on the wide. And I said, yeah, there's a lot of people that think that, but also the ultra wide is a very slow aperture. And so when you shoot in any kind of interior, I mean, I was shooting the other day just in a normally lit room and the footage was unbelievably noisy. And so by putting a lens on the wide, whether it's a 14, like the Moment 14 or an 18, in my experience, you just get a lot better quality. And the wide lens, again, for me, is just so much more stable and just sharp and just the best lens out of all three, the best camera.
Okay. Excellent. Good to know.
I'm not getting paid by Moment either, so.
I really love using the anamorphic accessory.
Well, yeah, and the anamorphic too. So for sure, yeah.
Yeah. I use all of those. So if the wide, if the wide gets any wider, I mean, you're probably going to have to start upgrading your lenses again. So, Richard, you said that Sandmark. We were talking offline. You said that Sandmark came out with a new lens, or they announced a new lens. What?
Oh well, literally, like 3 minutes before we started this live stream, I noticed an email come in to my inbox about a 1.55 Sandmark. I don't know. I didn't even read the email yet, but it's just interesting. It's interesting to me because we've all been waiting for B-Scripts 1.55 for a while. I've had the prototype for a while. It's a really fun lens to use. So yeah, it was interesting to see Sandmark have a 1.55, and I was immediately thinking, I wonder if it's actually the same lens, because there's not that many sources. There's not that many. I don't know. I guess Chris knows a bit more about this as well, but I have no idea if it is the same or not. I don't know. But yeah, it's interesting.
Yeah. So yes, I mean, obviously, external lenses are a plus. So, we hope that we'll be able to use them, but we'll see. All right, let's keep it moving here. So there's the telephoto. That's all good stuff. 65 millimeter. That sounds really exciting in theory. So, but it's a 2.2. I don't know how much more shallow depth of field we're going to get from video. I mean, this is going to be great for stills, but what is it really going to mean for video?
Well, when you drop that bomb, can I just butt in for a split second and ask a completely idiotic question? But if you have a Huawei P30 Pro, they have I will preface it by using the word dodgy, but a live focus mode that basically gives you shallow depth of field in real time. Now, it doesn't look an awful lot better than the free filter that you get with Instagram, to be brutal. But I do wonder if the LiDAR sensor could be leveraged to basically give you more accurate shallow depth of field and possibly even edging towards some of the lower frame rates for video. Christopher? No? Yes?
I don't have the device in hand. Previous iterations of Apple's depth map solution was based on 2-sensor parallax, and the depth map quality was terrible, almost unusual.
Okay.
And that's really the quality of the depth maps are what determine the quality of the depth of field effects.
Mm-hmm.
Now, I've heard good things about the LiDAR sensor. It's a time-of-flight sensor that projects thousands of IR dots and scans them back. If there are enough dots being projected in that sensor, then it will produce a moderately high-resolution depth map. And with high-resolution depth maps come high-quality depth of field effects. Now, FiLMiC, as you guys know, we have not put depth of field simulation in FiLMiC Pro because it doesn't meet our quality standards. We'll obviously evaluate this one when we get the hardware in hand, but I think we're moving in the right direction.
Would you say
I do want to point out for people who are just like, well, you know, why doesn't Chris know? You know, a lot of times, sometimes, you know, a lot of these companies aren't getting the phone or seeing the phone until, you know,
you do
on the Apple event. You know, so we need to give these guys a little bit of a break, you know, so because, you know, it's just, you know, it's streets when it's streets, you know. So, and that's an inherently Apple thing. So, sorry, I cut somebody off. Did I cut you off, Glenn?
Yeah, no. I was just going to not leave Chris off the hook with a follow-up question by saying, do you think that the processing power is starting to edge towards the point of being able to do that in real time?
Good question.
Yes, there's two bottlenecks to real-time depth of field simulation. One is the quality of the depth map, as I just mentioned, and the other is the GPU compute solution on the SoC. The A14 is, I think it has the ability to do real-time depth of field simulation with high-quality conical blur and aperture projection at many usable frame rates.
You just made my night, Christopher Cohen. That was actually, by the way, in case someone thought I was getting really deep and heavy, someone actually asked that. So I'm not taking credit for it. I just can't find where the question came from. It was, does third-party app developers have access to the Deep Fusion neural engine stuff? And I guess it's all part of the one. But thank you for that. That's a very interesting talking point.
Awesome.
Hey, could I ask Chris something real quick along the LiDAR aspect? Would if that comes to fruition with the fake depth of field for video, would that also open up the idea that you could use a LiDAR to do like a tracking or a better autofocus? Because I know DJI just came out with, I believe it's DJI, maybe they have a LiDAR-based follow focus rig for cinema lenses. I just wondered how that might apply to FiLMiC Pro, or would it?
Yeah, that's getting into territory that I can't really speak super freely on, but I will say that.
Okay, well that's good to hear.
No, please don't.
Take that whatever way you will, but perhaps not that way.
I'm tweeting it right now.
I will say this, that many hardware manufacturers that we have worked with are extremely interested in using time-of-flight data for augmented focus capabilities. And this isn't just Apple. This is everybody who has time-of-flight in development, and they all do.
Okay, good. Yeah, I was just curious.
Interesting. All right, moving on to, excuse me. First camera to record Dolby Vision HDR. Okay, so we're, you know, kind of in a way jumping back a little bit, but this is the one that I think is going to be incredibly impactful for a lot of people. Ryan, what are you interested in any of this?
I really want to know what are the benefits and differences of Dolby Vision HDR compared to other types of HDR like HDR10.
So, I mean, I can speak to that a little generally. Is the main difference is that, you know, Dolby Vision is intended to, on a per scene basis, provide, you know, light level data versus HDR10, which is going to provide a single piece of metadata for the entire let's say the entire movie you're doing would have just one piece of information to cover that of what the light levels are, so it can't adapt per scene, where Dolby Vision will allow you to do that. Now, in the implementation on the Pro Max, at least for now, I don't know if you're going to get all that much out of it. It might help, it would certainly help if you just took a piece of video and then uploaded it and people watched it on different TVs. It would have some information that potentially the TV could use to do a better representation of it. That depends on the TV's implementation and other things. And then for post-production, having that information per scene of what the camera captured in the light level model could be helpful in grading, but it also depends on the tools in the app. And you still have to do all the work to it. It's not going to change that. And you still want to get the look you want out of it. And that's going to change what the light levels are going to be going out. So I don't know at a capture level how much that's going to affect what, somebody who's a filmmaker is doing.
Okay.
Still to be seen and how it gets implemented.
Okay. Thank you.
I'm going to play devil's advocate and just say, what is it? I'm only half joking, because actually several people have asked, and then I'm also then going to blur the lines by saying, will it have any effect in the tone mapping issue? Anyone want to cut me off the ankles on that one?
Well, go ahead, Chris.
No, someone else talk.
I was just going to say that I watched. You guys follow Matty Hipoya, I assume, on YouTube, and he has really gotten into iPhones over the years, and he's the only guy I've seen recently that has a couple, in quotes, cinematic iPhone. I think today he's dropping a full review. He'd put out a video yesterday, and it had the dynamic tone mapping problems all over it. And he put up a little graphic on the screen that says, "I think this is the HDR flickering." And so, that would be. But I don't know exactly what HDR. I mean, I understand what HDR tone mapping is, but that's a Chris Cohen question for sure. The dynamic aspect. I mean, it's for photography, but it's trying to use it in video, and it's tough when it's a moving image.
Yeah,
I think
HDR. Go ahead, Ryan. Sorry.
I was going to say, I think when most people hear the term HDR, they just think of a photo filter. Most people.
That's exactly right. HDR is kind of a disaster from a consumer communication point of view. I think calling it HDR was just a terrible idea. I don't know whose idea that was. But it is tone mapping. That's really what it is. Now, currently, when you record with iPhone 8-bit capture, it's doing the gamma modulation for you. And what I mean by that is it's compressing highlights and lifting shadows, shifting around like the midtones, and doing like dynamic sigmoid gamma augmentation on the fly. It's like fixing the video for you in real time. Now, HDR formats like HDR Dolby Vision actually have a relatively static gamma, and that gamma modulation, like Chris said, is on a per scene basis in metadata, not in the actual file. The advantage of that is like a consuming device, like a television, will get this file. They'll get the metadata that describes the highlight mapping, the shadow mapping, the midtones, the whole gamma spline. And Mark Settle will be glad that I said spline.
He's still with us, by the way.
But it interprets that metadata in a way that's best for the consuming TV, tablet, phone. It's actually incredible. And I think it's going to rise in prevalence very rapidly. And the reason why I think so is that whenever Apple makes a video format mainstream, it gains momentum very quickly in the industry across all levels. One example of this is 4K capture. It really wasn't on anybody's radar until Apple made it available as a capture format on iPhone. And all of a sudden, it was a consumable and shareable format on social, and it radiated to other forms of content consumption and broadcast.
Very true.
Awesome. I'm going to take a couple of other questions from the audience in line. I just got a message from Courtney to say that his internet dropped out, so he's apologizing for not being present. He's desperately trying to get back onto the live stream, but hey, this is the nature of a live talk, But anyway, so other couple of questions that popped in there. Didn't log into YouTube, so I don't know their name, just initials MM. There's a question directed at Richard Lackey. What's the best color grade iPhone app? I know you're going to love that one, Richard. And the most inexpensive way to dive into entry post-desktop for color correction. No one-word answers, please.
No, he actually left this question on one of my YouTube videos, and I've been trying to figure out how to answer it.
He tracked you down.
Yeah, he tracked me down now. There's no escaping it. No, basically, I mean, it all depends what you want to do. And it depends, what your goal is and to what level you want to achieve. So, a lot of people have been asking about color grading tools, mobile, whether that's on phone or on iPad. And it really depends what you want to achieve. So it used to be the standard answer I would give would be like, no, there just isn't. But that's changed a bit more recently, and I think it's going to continue to change. That there are some tools available now. I mean, even you can do some basic adjustments and things, even in LumaFusion and Darkroom is one of my favorite tools that I've been playing with, which is traditionally photo based, but they've kind of come up with some really clever ways of being able to manipulate color and video. And even if you bring up two shots next to each other side by side, you can even do some rudimentary shot matching. I mean, you don't have scopes, you don't have the tools that really help, but it's somehow a step in that direction. But in terms of kind of an equivalent to the professional, even the minimum professional level tools that you would need, the answer is still, I haven't seen that on iPad or on phone yet. It just isn't there. On desktop, the tool I use, and I tell everybody because it's free, is DaVinci Resolve. It is a professional tool, and so it's a bit like, I can understand that for a lot of people starting out, it's a little bit like opening Photoshop or something and then never seeing it before and going, oh my gosh, what the hell do I do with this interface? Like, I don't even know what's going on. So I get that. But if you get onto some good YouTube videos and you start working through some tutorials, you start to figure it out and you start to understand what the different tools are. And it's more than I can go into in this live stream, but it is something that I specialize in, and it's something that I love doing very much. But yeah, I would recommend, instead of cutting corners, put some time into learning, a professional tool like Resolve. Now, I'll finish by saying this: the challenge of that is that it is quite a hardware intensive tool. It's desktop only. It wants a heavy CPU. It wants an even heavier GPU. And I think a lot of the compute and a lot of the things that are going on in an application like that on desktop are probably some of the reasons we haven't seen it mobile yet. I don't know that for sure. I think Chris would maybe have more of an idea of the comparisons between desktop, power, and where, like, for example, the iPad is heading, and how, even in terms of Apple moving the Apple, their own SoCs into, their laptops and their desktop machines in the future. Are we coming into some level of parity where we've got the power? That would be a question for Chris. But it's interesting. But yeah.
Can you speak to that, Chris?
Yeah, I will speak to that. I don't think it's a question of power, honestly. I really think that even the current iPads and iPad Pros have the power to do it. For us, it's just been a matter of where our focus has been for the last few years as we've grown as a company. We've had to focus on the basics of storytelling, good editing, and getting to a multi-track editor and having the basic tools for color correction. But in reality, at the end of the day, color correction is basically a LUT by the time you're done with it. What makes color correction powerful are the tools, things like you said, the scopes, all the nice user interface that makes it easy to match, to do all those things. That's actually the harder work in a sense, because you have to, on the iPad, you have to make it feel right. You have to have it work on a touch interface, and that just takes time. Now, the good news about that from our standpoint is it's definitely something we are, shall I say, focused on. It's not something that's coming right away, but it's something that's important to us. And we've been building up our team over the last year to a bigger team that, with some more knowledge, that I think we can make that happen in the future, and not so far in the future that it's, way out there where you won't know about it, but it's something that excited about, because we really do want to bring all of the capabilities of a professional editing workflow to the iPad. That's our goal, you know, and yeah, it's not there yet. And, you know, we've been one step at a time giving you little pieces of it. And, you know, but that's an area we really want to spend some effort on. That, and audio is the other one where, you know, currently the app isn't as powerful as we'd like it to be. And we're right in the middle of working on that right now. I could say that because there's some neat stuff happening there, you know, really improving our audio pipeline and the workflow and UI that make it, you know, make it usable and make it something that anybody can do what they need to do, you know, both a user who doesn't know about color correction and audio tools and one who does. And that's what we try to do, is fit both those models where, you know, we try to hit that sweet spot where, you know, if you don't know a lot about color correction, you can still get the look you want. And if you do, we want you to have the tools that make it possible to do the exact details that you want. So that's what we're working towards. I will say that.
It sounds like a recipe to success for me. Welcome back, Courtney. I have to say, it was, you know, went very quiet there. We didn't talk or anything while you were gone, so sorry. Yeah. But anyway,
we were just waiting in silence.
It was awkward, very awkward.
We did take a few more. We did take a few more questions from. I've one more. If you will hear me, it's actually it's jumping around a little bit, but I think it's a valid question. Actually, probably this is also going to be one for you, Chris. It's from Derek Ramey again. Could the Lidar detector maps that we spoke about a little earlier, could they potentially be used in post-production for more accurate manipulation of footage?
Yeah, you know, we've thought about that since, you know, Apple earlier announced, you know, the simple depth mapping that they had before. And, you know, I think I even talked to Christopher about that a little bit. You know, I think if we can get that as metadata, you know, with the video, then you could certainly have a post-production workflow where you could change focus and do some really interesting effects using that depth data. Now, whether we can do that in practical nature, that we still haven't determined yet. We haven't put the time into that, but we'd certainly like to.
Okay, very good. Thank you very much. Right, Courtney, sorry, I kind of interrupted the slides.
No, it's fine. You know, again, I apologize. It's the internet just totally dropped out. So, you know, well, welcome to live and welcome to the new world of working from home. So
Yep.
it is what it is, right? So I don't know where we left off, but I'm sure we could, you know, move forward. And we're actually, you know, starting to wrap up now, but I wanted to quickly talk about, you know, what the phone isn't, you know, and you know, it isn't a phone that has USB-C. So we know that, which is a bummer for a lot of us, you know, especially, you know, those of us who, you know, who wanted, you know, faster transfer speeds and all of that to, you know, different media. You know, faster charging, you know, all of those things. And then, you know, some sort of, you know, universality, you know, of, you know, being able to plug in different things that we have, you know, we've got mics, we've got, you know, hard drives, etc. So, any thoughts, you know, about USB-C and when the hell are we going to get it?
If,
yeah. I mean,
yeah, I thought for sure we were going to get it because FiLMiC Pro came out with the full screen HDMI, and I thought, man, that is going to fit perfect because Chris has said that if the full screen HDMI with USB-C, you might be able to spit out a 4K signal to an Atomos recorder. Right now, you can do 4K out of an iPad, but you can't do it out of an iPhone. It's 1080 because of the lightning, but then the signal is very compressed because of the lightning. So it's not happening, but it is still cool to get full HDMI out of FiLMiC Pro.
Yeah, I agree.
Yep.
Is this something that, you know, and I know this is kind of, it may be a little controversial, but is this kind of a step towards portless phones?
That's the rumor.
That was Mark Settle's question as well. What happens if they decide to just skip USB-C and go everything Bluetooth or something?
I don't think
headed that way.
God, well, I mean, you know, do it on the cheaper models by all means, but if the Pro is going to be anything that even is akin to a Pro, please, for God's sake, give us some way to plug a bloody microphone in, please. Apple, listen. And 25 frames per second would be nice as well for half the people on this side of the planet, just while I mentioned it for the 7,000th time. But hey.
But you're not crusty about that at all.
No, I mean, you know, I did the feedback form on the Apple website. I managed to get about 250 signatures on it to say, please, please, please do this for us. But no. But anyway, hey, you know, I'm not sore. No, and it's still not there. Chris, you look like you're just itching to come at me with something. Go on, Christopher. Sorry.
Which Chris? Okay.
Christopher.
Well, I will say this: that Apple, I have a hunch that they are aware of the professional need for physical ports, and they actually, they really enjoyed the HDMI feature. They congratulated us on its launch.
Awesome.
I'm actually using it right now. This is being streamed from FiLMiC Pro through the HDMI out feature.
Cool.
So it's definitely on their radar, you know. But again, you have to look at how Apple's decision-making engine actually works. The kind of consumers that we represent, we're a fraction of a percent, but we're still valuable to them because we're the ones making documentaries, news, movies, films, those things that are halos around the product. So as long as there's demand, a vocal demand, and things being done with the solutions that are already in the market, that will incentivize them to reinvest.
I like that. That's good. I'll just scream a little louder then on the back of that, and I'll say Christopher Cohen told me to do it.
Hey, you need guys like Steven Soderbergh and Damien Chazelle and those guys talking, and then they'll really listen.
Yeah.
But we need more people complaining about dynamic tone mapping. That needs to be a lot louder.
Right.
Everyone needs to sign a petition or something.
You don't need to sign a petition per se, but I think you should make things and then point it out. Just say it. Just talk about it. That dialogue needs to be in an open format.
And we will do it because Christopher Cohen said. So
they're coming for me.
They are. Get your firstborn ready. So let's quickly move on so we can get everybody out of here. Excuse me. So there was no high megapixel count. You have Android phones out there, putting up these crazy, numbers, 108 megapixels, and beyond. Why is Apple sticking with the 12 megapixels? Like, why are they still in there?
Because they want the sensor to actually see light.
Is that
yeah, you get better low light with less with the lower megapixels.
I mean, these sensors are tiny. They're really, really small. The minute the 108 megapixel, I think that's a Sony sensor. Actually, it's pretty impressive. But what Apple have decided to do, and I think it's really the right move, is, for instance, in the wide camera now, is even to increase the photosite size. So for anybody who doesn't know what a photosite is it's not really a pixel because a pixel needs red, green, and blue. It's debayered. But a photosite is one tiny little light-sensitive spot on the image sensor. The bigger they are, the more light, the better signal-to-noise ratio, the more light creates a signal there, So yeah, I think it all depends. I think 108 megapixel smartphone sensor is marketing gimmick, and a 12 megapixel with a move to increase the size of the photosites is somebody who cares about imaging. That's just my opinion.
No, you're absolutely right. I think they made the right choice for the consumer. If you zoom in on a CMOS sensor with the photodiode array, as Richard pointed out, you're going to find that around each photosite is part of the substrate, part of the edge of the lens. Each photodiode actually has a little micro lens on it. And the more photosites, or the denser you make these, the more of the substrate and the assembly actually consumes that dye area. So essentially, when you add more pixels, you absorb less light, which sounds kind of counterintuitive. So to mitigate that, you can solve that problem two ways. You can make your sensor bigger, or you can make your photosites or your photodiodes array bigger. They did both. So low light performance will be notably improved.
Excellent.
Good.
Okay. Let's see. Moving on. 120 hertz refresh rate. We didn't get that. A lot of phones are doing it. I mean, even the iPad is doing it. Why didn't we get that here? Is that just because it would chew up too much battery? Is it just because too hard to do? I mean, with all these other improvements, or just, they're going to get you on the next version?
I've heard battery.
Interesting. Okay. I mean, that sounds fair enough, but a lot of phones out there are, you're able to dynamically, jockey that up and down, so, why couldn't we get that on the iPhone? Kind of interesting, I would like to have it. Not necessary. I mean, it's not 100%, I mean, we've gone this long without it, but when everybody else is doing it, why can't we have it?
So then you can buy the 13.
So we can buy the 13. There it is. All right, moving on. 8K video. I kind of know the answer to this one, but it's, Samsung has gone this route. LG, and maybe a couple of others, have gone this route a little bit. But so 8K video, important, not important? What do you guys think?
Not important, at least right now. Not in 2020 or 2021.
Yeah, I
mean, make
agree.
4K good. Come on.
I think, like Christopher said about 4K, I think when Apple does implement 8K, that's when it'll start to become a format that gets more widely used, quite frankly. So, and I think it'll happen. It'll just take, or well, maybe it won't. I mean, there is a point where you're getting diminishing returns on that in any case. And so
most people that I encounter shoot 1080 HD on their iPhone. They don't shoot 4K. We are the minority for sure in that respect. Just your average consumer, just they use 1080 and it looks great. I'm not saying don't use 4K, but I'm just saying the people they market these phones to. I believe the phone defaults to 1080 in the native camera app. I could be wrong about that. 1080, 30 frames per second, which I just can't stand.
Right.
Yeah. I mean, I'll throw Tuppence in, which is when the whole 360 video thing started to take off, what was that for? The consumer version 4 years ago. Then the need for potentially 8K source content in a 360 sphere was something that you could justify, because ultimately you're probably going to end up cropping it down to something a hell of a lot less. Now, because that whole kind of movement is, to a certain extent, kind of dissipated somewhat. I'm trying to choose my words carefully, but I think you know what I'm saying. Like, where the hell do you put 8K? Like, aside from the file size issues and everything else that go with it, like, where the hell are people going to watch that? Nowhere. So, I mean, even journalists who are shooting 4K, they're actually not doing anything with the 4K content natively. They're cropping it and using it as a way to get around the zoom in limitations for HD. That's it. So yeah, I think Apple will do it when they believe it's about to catch on. They're not pushed about being first.
Well, D, actually, could you weigh in on that? Because 4K is a thing for YouTube, and a lot of creators are shooting 4 and 8K. So what do you have to say about that?
Yeah, I mean, for YouTube and 8K, it's simply not necessary. I mean, they're just now allowing everybody to watch in 4K. And if you look at who's actually watching your videos on YouTube, you get your data. You can see what devices people are watching on. Because I'm a mobile specific channel, like 85% of my audience is watching from a mobile device. I do shoot in 4K, but I upload in 1080p. But I mean, if 85% of my audience is actually watching from a mobile device, it doesn't make sense for me to even upload in 4K, specifically not in 8K. So, for YouTube, it's just not. Is it
true that YouTube gives priority to people who are uploading 4K?
You don't get priority, but you do get a 4K tag on your video. But they haven't weighted anything towards 4K yet. That doesn't mean that they won't. In the future, they could definitely do that, because one thing that is changing with YouTube is more people are watching content on televisions. They're streaming from their TV, so that market is actually increasing. So, but even then, 4K is fine with the television. Mm-hmm. So I can't. I don't see any reason right now to go with 8K.
Ryan,
not with YouTube.
Right.
Yeah,
right.
I'm with D. I'm with D on this one. Right now, hardly no one has an 8K TV. No one can afford it. I'm fine with shooting 4K right now. most of my YouTube videos, I'll shoot in 4K, and I'll just use it as a way to, punch in and export it out to 1080p. So right now, we'll get there eventually when, 8K TVs start becoming the norm and people are viewing more content like that. But right now, I just think it's just not necessary.
Yeah. Richard?
Yeah, I think my concern again comes back to more technical concerns as well in terms of post-production workflow. I'm skeptical of the amount of data, the useful image data you're getting. By the time first of all, you've got 420, you've got heavy chroma subsampling there as well. You've got HEVC or H.265 compression. And is it 8-bit or 10-bit? I'm not sure what they're doing at 8K, but still, to keep file sizes manageable in terms of what you're encoding onto a phone, I'd be very skeptical of how much image information is really in those files. To do 8K properly, the files would need to be beyond what any consumer would be willing to deal with on a device like this. My concern is that as well as the size of the sensor and whatnot that we talked about, it's just the quality of the files.
Yeah. I feel like right now in 2020 and 2021, 8K in general is just kind of it's marketing like 5G. We're not there yet. We'll get there, but we're not there yet. It sounds great. It sounds great when you buy something that can shoot in 8K. Or it has
the promise
5G.
of the future.
Exactly, the promise of the future.
Is there a possibility, though, the reason 8K crept into the Samsung devices because that's how they could deliver 100x claimed photo zoom? Really? As opposed to actually breaking into 8K video? Like, do you think that's perhaps more likely to be the motivation for it turning up in the Samsung device, the S20, I think it is? That's my theory. Can we take one or two more questions before we wrap, Courtney?
A little bit more, because they were making TVs that were, 8K TVs and all of that, so it's like, hey, you're shooting on 8K and you can watch it in 8K on this giant television. That costs
maybe.
I can tell you this, though, in terms of YouTube, never once have I watched a video and thought to myself, you know what, I would love this video so much more, or I'd subscribe to this channel, or I would get on board with whatever this creator is doing if only they were shooting in 4K. If you're a good storyteller, you're a good storyteller, right? Yeah. To me, it doesn't matter what they're actually uploading as.
Demiris, are you going to be ready for 8K?
We'll be ready for it as soon as Apple implements. Actually, you can import 8K videos into LumaFusion, and they're on the timeline. You cannot export higher than 4K at the moment. But again,
wow.
I don't know the use of this. I'll admit that I can. I finally got a 4K TV at home, and after years, and I can see a little difference. You see a canopy of trees, and you can see a few more leaves in it. And it's nice, but again, it doesn't add anything to the story. We'll be ready for it when it does come.
Cohen.
Absolutely not. Are you kidding? Yeah, of course.
Yeah, awesome. Awesome.
You got it.
All right, guys. Let's see. One of the last things here before we jump into just a couple of questions, and we'll get everybody out here. Is why no power brick? Of course, it's a silly thing, but Apple decided, okay, we're not putting a power brick in because you guys all have bricks. But the problem is that unless you have the iPhone 11 Pro or the 11 and 11 Pro, you don't have the USB-C to Lightning power brick. You have the regular USB power brick. But now you're going to end up having to buy another box with another adapter, which is, I think it's just silly. I think they should have held off on that for one more round, until. But that's maybe just me. Any thoughts on that? I mean, it's a silly thing, but it is what it is.
I mean, I do think as professionals we need the faster recharging, but I think for the average consumer, they're not going to care, at all. They're going to use whatever power brick they have, or like myself, I finally moved to a wireless charger sitting by my nightstand and just throw it on that and don't care. So, for most of us, I don't think it'll matter. And for the ones who do, we probably already do have a USB-C adapter, is what I would guess.
Awesome. Awesome.
It's a strange choice, though. I will agree with that.
It is just okay, fine.
But remember, Apple made a $5,000 monitor and a $900 stand, so they should have put that together, and it would have sold so much better.
Wow. Yeah, I know. Those numbers are just astronomical. Got it.
They are.
Why would you need God, that monitor? It just, I mean, the stand for the monitor is how much?
I think it was 900 or in that range.
Stand.
Yeah.
So
don't get me wrong, it's nice, but my point is, from a marketing perspective, they just should have put it together. Hey, you get this monitor for $6,000 with the stand. When you hear the stand is 900, you're like, oh wow.
I'll just put it in my lap.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I guess there's plenty of money in the accessories, though. If you think about it, the 4 USB ports on my Mac right here are all stuck with dongles and add-ons and blah 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 to do anything functional.
Absolutely.
So yeah, it's part of the money-making engine. And it wasn't just the power brick; it was the headphones have been pulled as well.
Well, yes.
So your emergency journalism microphone is no longer being provided by Apple. But hey, it's all good. I'm sure you have an old one in a box somewhere. Can I take one or two last questions before we wrap, Courtney? There's a few more after just coming in.
Sure. I was just going to throw one up real quick, if you don't mind. So this one is for Richard.
That's the one I asked when you took your little tiny.
When I was there. Okay. So what was your answer?
Sabbatical.
We did. Yeah. Short answer was no.
No. Got it.
He did answer more than that, but that was it summed up really.
Good deal. All right, go for it, Glenn.
So Cassius, who gratuitous plug in here, and to be fair, he's just launched a series with FiLMiC, and it's first one that went out in social media today. It was really good, so fair play to him. But actually, I think we had this conversation already. Can we talk about the sensor frame stabilization compared to the lens? Yes, Cass, but we did. So you're gonna have to watch it back because we did chat about it a little bit earlier on benefits. But I think it's a really valid question. He also then mentioned the idea about, exactly as one of you guys just said a second ago, story is king. At the end of the day, we can talk bits, bytes, or as Mark Settle said, when you're talking about pixel sites, is that flicker we're talking about, as an example. So we can get into tons of jargon, but at the end of the day, the story really is the single most important thing. And what was the other one? There's quite a few. There's been good comments. There's been good interactions and stuff actually on the YouTube channel. You can always get a chance to go back through there. Lots of people saying thank you, found it really, really useful. I had one or two that I'd highlighted, but I think we've actually plowed through them. So no, that's it. We're all good. There's comments about external lenses and macros and blah, blah, blah. Lots of good conversations, but I think we've covered an awful lot of it. So I'll just leave it at that.
Absolutely. All right. Well, hey, guys, thank you so much for joining us. This has been an absolute pleasure, to have all of you on. We'll have to do it again. Hopefully my internet doesn't just drop out, again, and I can actually participate in this thing, would be nice. So thank you, Comcast, but I didn't say that out loud. So, look, wrapping it up, guys. Thank you so much. Any last little bits from anybody? No.
Say this has been very informative. I've learned a lot, and it's exciting to see what these application developers like FiLMiC Pro and LumaFusion are doing with their apps to support the new phones, and I can't wait to get my hands on it and put it through its paces.
Yes, indeed.
Well said, Ryan.
Yeah, Blake.
Oh, not really. I just would probably I can't even speak. What Dee was mentioning earlier about YouTube, how really the Dolby Vision, the HDR, that is probably great for YouTube more than maybe what we do as filmmakers, but really that's the market for the phone. And that's who watch my channel. A lot of those people don't want to color grade like we do. That is, you want to shoot an image and make it look good and then put it in your video and put it on YouTube. And so I think the 10-bit HDR could be really beneficial to those type of people, including myself. But I also like the idea of having more information and more resolution and that kind of thing for color grading. So, yeah, Mr. Lackey.
Oh no, I think it would be useful to even for doing something like this again once we've actually got some experience with the devices.
Yes, absolutely.
Some of the question marks have, if they don't have full answers, they at least have more. We have more of an idea of the direction that certain things are headed or certain technologies are headed. We should do it again, maybe later in a few months or something.
Absolutely, yeah. Just so you guys know, I pushed a shoot because I'm going to be doing a sci-fi series. I actually pushed the shoot to get this iPhone Pro Max, and because I want to be able to use it on there. I know it's crazy to do it, when it's not a proven thing out there, but I'm doing it. Of course, I'll be documenting the whole thing, so I'm going to be using it in a practical setting. So, and it's crazy, but yeah. So anyway, Mr. Nimmin.
Yeah, I agree with Richard on this. I think it'd be great if we can get back together in a couple of months once we actually have it hands-on. It's a little bit difficult to go through some of these questions and give an opinion on it when we don't actually have it. My only exposure is what I've seen on YouTube. Most of them are tech YouTubers, and it's 10 minutes of unboxing. B-roll footage and cool lighting. It's like, come on, just what does it look like?
ASMR of them peeling the plastic off of it. Yeah,
right. So yeah, I think it'd be great to get back together once we actually have it.
Indeed.
Yeah, and maybe after some of us have actually, I don't know, made something with it. We have some footage, some short film, something to show, and that would be cool.
Show and tell. That would be awesome.
Yeah,
let's do it.
Right, I feel a filmmaking challenge coming on. Ooh.
Are you guys pre-ordering the phone, the Pro Max?
I will.
Yes,
I think that's been my advice to people without using it. But if you want video, if you want to use it as a video, go with the Pro Max.
Yes,
absolutely.
I could change that opinion completely when I get it. I don't think.
Well, Blake, I'm
Pro Max. No.
I'm going to wait on Blake's video before I make my purchase.
Right. I'm gonna wait. Let's see. You're going to wait on Blake. I'm going to wait on you, and then we're all going to wait. Yeah. So, Mr. Demiris, last thoughts.
We're excited to see what it brings, and excited to implement whatever we can to take advantage of it, particularly with HDR. And one other thing I want to throw out. The one thing that wasn't mentioned here, another new announcement, was the new iPad Air, which we are really excited about as an editing, platform for LumaFusion. It's a good price for what it is, and so that's another thing that we're really excited about.
Yes. I mean, we should have another one about editing, like specifically about editing, because that's another big piece of this puzzle. It's like we all get whipped up about the sexiness of the new phone, of the new capture device, but the thing that doesn't get enough love is what we edit on. And me personally, being such a big fan of LumaFusion, I definitely want to dive into that. So thank you, Mr. Cohen.
Yeah, I just encourage you all to not look at the product, but look at the path. The history of celluloid filmmaking is about 130 years, and iPhoneography is about a decade and some change. Right, we are in the earliest of the early days, and it's already, the strides that have been made have already been enormous. I look forward to the next decade. I think it's going to be transformative, but I do think that we are very quickly approaching a point of mainstream acceptance in the next 2 to 3 years. And there's going to be a change, a fundamental change in content creation and democratization of not only capture, edit, but distribution as well. Mobile's the tip of the spear.
Here.
Lips to film God's ears. Yes, absolutely. I 100% agree. And as I always say, we know that the technology is not getting worse from this point. So that's just what it is. So we are going to leave it there. Glenn, did you have anything that you wanted to say?
I don't know if anyone watching this is familiar with a guy called Jeremy Clarkson, but I've ripped off some of his expressions several times during the podcast. I'm going to drop one bombshell before we wrap up tonight, and that is, it is looking like MojoFest will be back in 2021. That's all I'm going to leave it at. Thank you very much. I've enjoyed the show. Hope you have too, and hope to talk to you soon.
Indeed. All right, gentlemen, thank you, and have a great rest of your day, evening, and whatever it is, because I know Richard Lackey, it's probably like, oh my God, o'clock right there, right?
Yeah, it's almost 1 a.m. I'm going to bed.
Yeah. All right.
Thanks, Richard.
All right. So this has been a special presentation, a live presentation. As you saw, things went crazy, but we got it back on track. Thank you, everybody, for joining us out there in YouTube and Twitter land. And we'll be seeing you next time. Okay. All right. Be good and stay safe, everybody.
Bye for now.
Thank you.
Bye. For now.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Cheers.